The Extraordinary Rendition of Janos Farkas. Chapter 9. Watch the vowels, his voice coach had told him. The consonants are similar. It is the vowels that bring distinction. Of course, that was all well and good if you were only dealing with one language. Capturing the voice in English was easy, English with a Bosnian twist. But he would need an excuse to speak English. Of all the major players, only Howd spoke English fluently, a glossy, plummy version he had acquired at Cambridge. But fooling Howd would not come until later. German with the Bosnian twist would be more difficult, with too many sounds being similar. Bosnian itself could be both the best and the worst. He had just spent 10 months immersed in the language as a history student at the University of Tulsa, and then 2 months as a taxi driver at Sarajevo, picking up the sounds and sights and the speech patterns of the city. Janos was from the more northern Debaj area, but he had been shaped in Sarajevo. Driving a taxi had forced Spencer to think in Bosnian, and now he was comfortable with the language. But in this comfort lay the danger. Would he be too comfortable, too casual, too dismissive, too sure of himself, and let his language guard down and slip up in front of his soon-to-be sister, Gisela? Gisela. Who would know his voice better than her? Who? The best way would be to find a reason to stick to German, a language they all spoke, although none were born to it. Spencer looked at the pile of audio and video recordings on the table. The total contents of the packages he had received weekly in Tulsa and Sarajevo lay neatly stacked in front of him, along with a few things he had not seen. None of this would have been possible without the actor's vanity. If Janos had been a plumber, then there would be nothing to study. But as an actor, there were interviews for radio and television in Bosnian, German, and English. There were also recordings of his theater performances in all 3 languages, and hours of surveillance taken of him in everyday life. Although much of it was silent, it was equally important because the language of movement can be just as identifying as the language of voice. There was also some surveillance footage of Gisela, a big, dark man they called Turk, and a few others. Beside the tapes was a folder of pictures of other people Janos knew. These would need only cursory study. The part Spencer was playing was so far into the play that there was not much room for other actors to get involved. He stood up and sorted through the video pile. Selecting one of the new surveillance videos, he inserted it into the playback machine and let its flickering image seep into his reality. It was nothing more than Janos eating a croissant and drinking coffee at an outdoor cafe. There was a woman with him, a pretty woman with a straight nose, full lips, and firm chin. Her cheekbones were high, but not so high that they interfered with the roundness of her eyes. Who was she? He paused the video and leafed through the folder of pictures. She was not among them. Maybe she was not important. Spencer returned to the video, miming the way Janos moved his head, miming the way his lips moved in conversation, aping the way he talked with his hands. He tried to read his lips. What was he saying to her? He couldn't quite make it out. Maybe it wasn't important. And then, watching Janos's movements, he saw something so important that he wondered how he could not have noticed it before. Something that could destroy any transparency, any ruse. This would have been a hell of a lot easier, he said to himself, if the real Janos were not left-handed. He raised his left hand and looked at it as if it were a stranger, raising it and lowering it, opening and closing it, watching its reflection in the large pane of glass in front of him. Then he let it drop and only looked at the glass. Beyond that glass, the glass of the one-way mirror, he could barely make out the sparse contents of the interrogation room. Beyond that glass, the videos would become a real person undergoing real interrogation. The glass would keep him separate from that reality. But at some point, the glass would disappear and he would have to step through it. That is the end of Chapter 9. Tomorrow, Chapter 10.